G'day guys, it's Chronicles of Solid here again. I'm back to do another review. Now this review is going to be divided into two parts. That's because I've got a motorcycle that's good at doing two things. It's made for the dirt and for the road. So the first review, this video, will be about the bike and how it handles on the road. If you're wondering what that fence is, I haven't been put in prison. It's just a fence to keep the feral animals out of the nature reserve just on the other side. So this is a Yamaha WR250R. It's a 250cc, makes about 29 horsepower, and it's in the low 20s for torque, I think. Now, it's a dual sport, which I've just explained is good for the dirt and for the road, so it's half dirt bike, half road bike. And I've made a few modifications to it, as you can see. I'll go through those a little later on. But while we're here, I'll just go through the negatives, because some of these require pointing out. The first one, if we come and have a close look, is early models 2008. There's a fuel pump down in the fuel tank here. Some of those had an issue when the fuel gets low, they overheat. Now they did solve that problem later on, but if you end up with an earlier model, that's something to look out for. The other main concern is down here. Hopefully you can see this little rubber kind of protector for the swing arm here. Now the chain rubs against that, and if you don't pay attention, the chain will rub all the way through that and then start chewing into the metal. So you need to keep an eye on that. It's just a hazard of having this bike. That's about it really for major complaints. I'll get into the aftermarket stuff I've put onto it before I get on the road, because I want to get all this out of the way because it's a bit hot today. I'm going to melt if I stand here much longer. So I have a larger fuel tank on here. That's just to get the extra distance. Out here in Australia there's quite a lot of spots out in the country where you can easily 450, even up to 700 kilometers in some spots without seeing a fuel station. So I needed the extra tank. Next month hopefully I'll be doing a track out in the bush, and that's 450 k's before fuel, so I needed the bigger tank. The rest of the modifications focus mainly on protection. So I've got a radiator guard to stop rocks. Now there is a bit of a discussion as to whether there's a clearance issue with the aftermarket tank and the radiator guard. I can report that there's plenty of room there, guys, so there's no need to worry. I've also got a bash plate like you saw on the BMW. That's very handy for protecting the underneath of the engine. I don't want to be stranded in the middle of the nowhere. It's not fun. The bike came with an aftermarket exhaust pipe, a GYTR. It's a bit louder, so it sounds nice. You get that brap brap sound. You dual sport guys will know what I'm talking about there. And it also allows you to put the stock exhaust cover on it. Now the advantage of this is when I've got my bags on here, it stops the bags from getting burnt. So any other aftermarket exhaust, you'd have a bit of trouble there. So that's really handy. I've got a little top rack here that just allows me to bolt on a cheap Bunnings toolbox, and I keep all my tools for not if I break down, but for when I break down, because I know it's going to happen at some point. I've got a little guard here as well. It just protects the rear brake master cylinder. And I've got handguards because I'm probably going to crash into a lot of trees, and I need to protect my hands and I need to protect the levers. I've also got little mirrors here which just fold down like this. And it's very handy because conventional mirrors usually have big mirrors sticking out here. And being that it's me riding the bike, I am going to drop it and they will snap off. So I've thought ahead and planned for my stupidity. So that's about it for mods. We'll go for a little ride. I'm not too far from the beach, so hopefully there's not too many people and I can park up and you can have a look at Coogee Beach. Should be nice. Sun's out. The sand will be white. Now instantly on the bike you can hear the aftermarket exhaust. It's a little bit louder than the last bike I reviewed, but it's part of the fun. Now, being a 250, the main concern is that it's too small to really do the job properly, and it should get a bigger bike. Well, as I explained in the last video, I have two bikes, so I didn't want too much overlap between my big 800cc bike and this little 250. And being that this is going to be ridden mostly in the dirt, I wanted something that was as light as possible, but I didn't want to sacrifice the ability for it to ride on the road competently. Now, I can report that even though this is only 250cc's, it's fantastic on the road. It really blew all my expectations out the window. Even at 100, 110, a lot of 250s run out of steam there, and it's very difficult to overtake. I haven't found that to be the case with this. Now, I can't report what that doing 110 with luggage and a full tank is like, but just normally with a full tank and me on it, it hasn't had a problem. I should probably compare this to other bikes in the category. I guess the closest rival in my mind is the DRZ400S, which is made by Suzuki. And I actually planned to get that bike rather than this bike. It was just happenstance that I turned up at Yamaha. So I went and test rode the DRZ, and it just felt a little too heavy, bearing in mind I have a shoulder injury, so lightness was a factor. Even though these are close in weight, the DRZ felt a lot heavier, and I think the weight was carried up higher, which means it's harder to pick up when it's fallen over. So that was one negative. The second one was it just didn't feel as well put together. The suspension wasn't quite as, I guess, sweet. It just wasn't as nice. It was a little bit squidgy and a bit vague. Also the looks. It looks a little old, the DRZ. It's been out for 14 years now, and it's looking a little dated. So when I came and hop on the WR250, I really thought I was going to be unimpressed. I mean, it's a tiny little tiddler bike. I mean, you look at the thing and you think, well, that couldn't, pull the skin off a warm pudding if it tried. But it really is quite zippy, and really it's like a Jack Russell Terrier, to use an analogy. It's just aggressive, energetic, a lot of fun. You do have to rev the tits off it to get it moving, but that's part of the fun. So it really is a good time, this little bike. And being that it's so small, it just makes it super easy to ride. I mean, it's even easier than the BMW. Just the turning circle is tiny, the balance is great. I should probably go into things about this bike that are good and not so good. I got the flaws straight out of the way, but just on the road kind of negatives. The brakes are completely competent for dual sport brakes, but if you're like me and you're coming from road-based bikes, they might be a little underwhelming. So you do have to kind of be mindful of that and just give yourself a little extra room. As I creep really close up to this car, do what I say, not what I do. Yeah. Come on, guys, it'll be Christmas before we get around here. The clutch is really light, so it makes it really easy to ride around, especially in traffic when you're having to change lots. The seat is, within the dual sport world, is probably one of the more comfortable seats, but if you're comparing it to a road bike, sitting on a wooden board with rusty nails is probably going to be more comfortable for you than this dual sport seat. After say 20 minutes, you're just in agony. It's pretty unbearable. But with these bikes, you're supposed to, in the dirt, stand up, so they're not designed to kind of be comfortable, because you're not supposed to be using the seat that often. The stock bars, which I've changed out, were a little too low. I'm 180 centimeters, and when I was standing up there was too much of a lean, but as you can see now I can reach the bars perfectly. It's a really comfortable position on the bike. I believe they're the Pro Taper CR high bends, I think. They have so many different kinds, it's hard to remember. The other thing to keep in mind when getting a dual sport is how much room there is to fit larger off-road boots. So I don't know if you'll be able to see this, I'll stick my leg up like an idiot. Those boots there are really chunky, so if you don't have enough adjustment in your pegs and your gear lever and your brake lever down by your feet, then you're not going to be able to fit those boots in. With this WR that's not a problem, but my mate found out the hard way with his KLR250, he couldn't fit his boots in there, so he's got to plan and get some aftermarket stuff just so he can fit his shoes in there. And for reference of my size boots, they're size 10, just your regular O'Neill MX boots, so they're fairly chunky. The other two bikes that are close to this are the KLX250S Kawasaki and the Honda CRF250L. Both of those bikes I kind of scratched off my list before I got to the test ride. I did sit on them both and have a look and bounce up and down on them. The CRF, the suspensions just felt way too soft and it felt really heavy. And I also read online the power specs and it was quite down on power compared to this, although it does make its power earlier in the rev range. Just the weight and the inferior suspension kept me away. The KLX250S, power again, it was the lowest power out of all three, and to get any kind of power out of it you have to upgrade the engine, and that's more money and blah blah blah. It's just too much faffing about. So this is the only 250cc I really considered properly. Just getting to the beach now. As you can see, you can really fling this bike around. It's just so much fun. The fuel economy is pretty good. I haven't really tested mine, but online, and I'm going off American stuff obviously, because I'm about to say gallons. It's about 60 to 70 miles per gallon. So that's pretty good. It's not amazing, but it's good enough. That was me missing a gear. Yeah, so in the next video, like I said, I'll be in the dirt and I'll go into a little more what it's like to ride off-road. It does have tyres that are made for both the dirt and the road, so it's probably a little more problematic on the road because they've got big knobs on them, so you've got to be a little wary of your grip levels. They're not going to be quite as good as a road bike, but they seem to do the job well enough. Stand up, I don't know if you guys can see the ocean over there. If you're wondering what that little red light is, that's just my low fuel light. Being the muppet that I am, I forgot to go to the petrol station, so I'm running on reserve at the moment. And that's my phone going off. So here we are at the beach, guys. I'll give you another look at the bike before I go, and I'll put the beach in just because I know I've got a few people in Poland who are watching this, because my wife's Polish, so I'll give them a look of the Australian beach. So that's the WR250R again. A brilliant little bike for a 250. I mean, it just blew my mind for how good it was for such a tiny motor. Yep, I couldn't recommend it more for off-road. Alright, so Coogee Beach. And just before I go, I wanted to thank everyone for the kind comments and encouragements from the first video. That was really unexpected, so it was nice to get those. Anyway, this is a pretty typical Australian beach. White sand, blue sky, blue ocean, and disregard the crappy wharf in the background. So that's Chronicles of Solid. Thanks for tuning in again, and the next video hopefully will be the second part of this review, but in the dirt. So I'll catch you guys in the next video. See you later.